stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right. Good morning. We're back with you. This is our third segment for the day. We want to talk about Benghazi. And I got to tell you that there is some frightening and very damning information that's come out over the course of the last couple of days. First of all, we know that Benghazi was originally, in large part, about the smuggling of weapons. This was a guns deal, folks. And it was a deal that was intended to completely change the Syrian issue here. They didn't want to do this publicly. They wanted to make sure that they did it in secret. And this is no different than the Iran-Contra affair that, for all intents and purposes, hammered the Reagan administration and virtually brought it down. The problem is that Americans have died during this. We know that there's so much of a cover-up going on here that it's almost impossible to disregard the truth about where we stand on these issues. And when we're talking about our national security and their argument that all of this is being done, all of this surveillance and all this monitoring is being done on, for the purposes of national security's purposes, you got to wonder, 400 U.S. surface-to-air missiles are now in the hands of our enemies. What are they going to do with all of those missiles? I mean, it's pretty frightening when we think about the idea that 400 of these missiles can be used against American aircraft, whether civilian or military. There's a recording out there of Joe DiGenova from August 12th this year, in which he talks about the fact that these missiles were stolen from Benghazi, and these weapons will and can or should be used against us. Now, DiGenova is a federal prosecutor, and he's an attorney, or he was a federal prosecutor. He's an attorney for one of the Benghazi whistleblowers. And he tells Washington, D.C.'s WMAL that one of the reasons people have remained tight-lipped about Benghazi is because 400 U.S. missiles were diverted to Libya and ended up being stolen and fallen into the hands of, quote, some very ugly people. DiGenova represents the Benghazi whistleblower Mark Thompson. He told WMAL, this is the radio station he was being interviewed on, and I've got the interview, so if we want to hear it, we can. But he does not know whether the missiles were at the annex, but it's clear the annex was somehow involved in the distribution of these missiles. His information, he states, comes from a former intelligence officer who stayed in constant contact with people in the special ops and intelligence community. They are worried, specifically, according to these sources, about an attempt to shoot down an airliner. Now, there were 35 CIA operatives working in Benghazi when the attack took place. The vast majority of those we've not heard from. This administration has been hiding them, changing their names, providing them with aliases, and moving them around the country so that they cannot receive subpoenas. People, I don't know what more proof you need of a cover-up than when you're trying to hide your witnesses. If the mob were to do this, facing a federal indictment of some sort, it would be obstruction and the government would be having kittens over it. They would be indicting anyone and everyone within range in an attempt to try to resolve the problem. Yet here, the government itself is doing that which they prosecute Americans for. This is a criminal enterprise. It is truly a criminal enterprise. The testimony on months earlier, following then Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta's February 7th testimony on Capitol Hill about the Benghazi attack, Senator Rand Paul suggested that one of the causes behind the terrorist attack, now this is going back all the way to February, quote, may have been that there was a gun-running operation going on in Benghazi, leaving Libya and going to Turkey for distributing arms to the Syrian rebels. Now they're in the hands of we don't even know who. But one thing we do know is that when you're talking about this kind of firepower against Americans, we are in big, big trouble. I want you to listen to some sections of this video because it's very informative.
First of all, the sealed indictment is supposed to be sealed. It's not supposed to be revealed, is it not?
It is indeed.
For the record, he's talking there about the fact that the sealed indictment against some of the Benghazi attackers was Obama announced it in public, which is against the law to do. And so they're raising the issue of, did the president break the law by stating publicly for the record that there was a sealed indictment?
Brian, this was actually we are now getting close to a series of statements by the president that put him on the long road to impeachable offenses. At that news conference, the president...
By the way, for the record, I just want to share this with you. While we are on the long road to impeachable offenses, one thing that you need to understand is, and I posted this up on our Facebook and our YouTube pages this morning, there is a House representative member. He argues that while the impeachment could be successful, he's concerned that it would damage the republic if we were to do that. And, I mean, here's what he says. We saw what happened when President Clinton was impeached. I say this half in jest and half seriously because, hey, it's easy to laugh at President Clinton. But as a result of impeaching Clinton, we've redefined what sex is to a lot of our young people, and we've said it's okay to lie to Congress. I think that that's been woven into the thread of our society. And that failed impeachment attempt has damaged the country. What message do we send to America if we impeach Obama and he gets away with what he's impeached for and is found innocent? Aside from the fact that it wouldn't be effective, I think there is some potential damage to society that would be done with a failed attempt to impeach him. Now, they're talking here specifically about his birth certificate. So my comment there is, okay, so let's ignore a crime that affects every living human being on Earth. Because a tyrant operating in tyranny is certainly damaging across the board for all Americans and every human being, right? How many stories have there been about how Hitler or Stalin could have been thwarted from the evil which they accomplished? If only someone had taken action early on. How many movies have we seen where if only someone had close to Hitler had taken a pistol and taken him out when he was descending into tyranny, that the entire world would have been different. And I submit that this is the same situation. Here's a guy who says we can't impeach him, even though we have the legal means to do it, because we may not be successful. I got to tell you, that's the wrong attitude altogether. If the man is to be impeached because he's violated the law, then dagnabbit, let's impeach him. I don't know. It's an aside, but I mean, this kills me. The attitude on the part of House members who are unwilling to step up and do the impeachment, led in large part, by the way, by John Boehner, who is a reprehensible traitor to the American people, is just beyond the pale. So let's get back to this Joe DiGenova, who's the attorney for one of the whistleblowers on Benghazi.
Violated a court order of the United States District Court for either the Eastern District of Virginia or the District of Columbia, where this sealed indictment apparently exists. He's not allowed to say that. A president can declassify a document, but he cannot unseal an indictment. Only a federal court can do that. Whoever is the chief judge of either one of those districts should issue a show cause order for the United States attorney in that district as to why the United States attorney or the president should not be held in contempt. That was unbelievable. This is from our professor president, the so-called constitutional scholar. There's just no doubt about it. What he did was illegal. And, of course, I can't believe how stupid the press is, particularly I give Ed Henry A+. But the AP reporter, Julie Pace, who was on Fox News Sunday, said it was kind of unusual for the president to talk about a sealed indictment in a public setting. It wasn't unusual. It was illegal. And by the way, apropos of that, the president, he said, I got bin Laden.
I thought you'd like that.
I didn't get it in 11 months, but I got him. Well, guess what? We didn't know where bin Laden was. That's why it took so long. But we do know where the perpetrators of Benghazi are, and we have known since within 48 hours of the assault. The president was dissembling at his worst. But worse than that, he's the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. He revealed a sealed indictment. This is a big deal.
So Joe, just to clear this up for people, because just by saying there is a sealed indictment, that is revealing it. That's against the law. He didn't open it up. He didn't say who was indicted. He didn't give the specifics.
It doesn't matter. You're not even supposed to know there is a sealed indictment. That's a violation of grand jury secrecy. It's a violation of a court order. It's unbelievable. And the way he did it, this nonchalance, this,
shrugging.
Hand Luke crapola.
Hey, Joe, let me continue down this road, though. Now, potentially, if we do end up indicting someone, or we have indicted them, but if we actually get somebody with Benghazi and we arrest them and we want to try them in federal court, did the president in any way, by revealing the sealed indictment, did he jeopardize the prosecution?
Probably not, but he did jeopardize the lives of people who may be trying to find these people on the ground in Libya, and I assume that we do have somebody there trying to find these people, although with this president you never know, because as you know, he doesn't want to capture people. He wants to kill them, because if he captures them, he has to either try them, which is very hard to do,
or put him in Gitmo.
Which he will not do. By the way, a little bit of information, as you know.
By the way, for the record, one of the reasons why he doesn't want to capture these people, and he doesn't want these people captured in particular, is because they know the truth about what really went down in Benghazi. And he can't allow those people to come to trial. Because if the truth gets out in a trial where there's discovery and they've got documentation or any kind of supporting information that indicts this administration, the Department of State, the CIA, or any of these other agencies or organizations out there, then you have to realize that would bring down this entire administration. And so one of the reasons why no one's really actually investigating this very hard, and they, even though they may have a sealed indictment against this guy, a year later, 18 months later, no one's pursuing it because they can't afford to let these guys be found and testify. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the real truth of the reason.
You heard from us first, and you guys knew first about we had troops ready to deploy in Croatia to go that night of September the 11th, 2012, to rescue Americans. We have learned that one of the reasons the administration is so deeply concerned, we have been told that there were 400 surface-to-air missiles stolen, and that they are all on or about in the hands of many people, and that the biggest fear in the U.S. intelligence community is that one of these missiles will be used to shoot down an airliner.
Hold on a minute, because this is big stuff. This is really important stuff.
400 missiles.
What was going on there was they were
from Libya.
They were taking the Libyan surface-to-air missiles, the CIA, and they were sending them where?
That's a good question. I don't
Maybe
have an
Syria rebels? Maybe the Syrian rebels?
Do not have an answer to that, but we have learned, as you know, as a result of Victoria and I representing the whistleblowers, a lot of people have come forward to share information with us. Some of it is verifiable, some of it is not. This information comes from former intelligence officials who stay in constant contact with people in the special ops and intelligence community, and it is pretty clear that the biggest concern right now are 400 missiles which have been diverted in Libya and have gotten into the hands of some very ugly people. And they are worried, specifically according to these sources, about an attempt to shoot down an airliner.
Yes, air, surface-to-air missiles. That's what they do. They shoot down planes.
That's exactly right.
And now they're in the hands of al-Qaeda operatives.
That is what these people are telling us.
And, these are surface-air missiles that we believe, and you believe, based on your sources, Joe DeGenova, that were at the annex that night on September 11th, 2012.
That I do not know whether they were at the annex, but it is clear that the annex was somehow involved in the process of the distribution of those missiles.
And so why in the world, in a situation like that, would you want to delay the entry of the FBI down there to investigate what was going on?
Here it comes.
That's a great question, isn't it?
The reason is very simple. Because it happened before an election, before the 2012 election. Remember, September the 11th, 2012, no preparation at the American installation actually anywhere in the world. Can you imagine if that had happened on George Bush's watch?
Oh my
if
God.
there had been a second attack? This is why we shut down the 19 embassies recently. They were afraid that there was going to be a missile attack on one of the embassies. Remember, you can take a shoulder-held missile and shoot it into an embassy, not just in the sky.
Yeah. Wow,
And
Joe.
what happened is the reason they lied about, in other words, remember the famous demonstration and the phony video
YouTube
and all
video.
of that?
Mm-hmm.
That's what this was all about. That's why they're so worried. That's why they have lied repeatedly about what happened in Benghazi, because they are now responsible for all of the stepchildren of violence that happened as a result of this. This is a very serious matter. And when you compound it with the flippancy of the President of the United States, who talks about a sealed indictment to cover his fanny to make it look like he's doing something when in fact he has done nothing. We have reached a level of cynicism personally on the part of this president that is staggering. He's not a president anymore. He's a talk show host.
Well, I've always said that...
You see, folks, where we stand right now is that we have so lost control of our nation and our situation at this point that I'm not sure how much more we as a republic can take. You know, I mean, we are so upside down that at this stage in the game, it's almost impossible for us to continue to move forward as a republic until we get to the bottom of this. I'm not sure if there is a way that we can force Congress to begin to subpoena these people into a congressional hearing. That's what needs to happen. I don't want to hear any more nonsense about people wanting to investigate from congressional perspective. We need a special counsel who has a subpoena authority to be able to bring these people in and run this like a true law enforcement investigation. Because until we have that, we will never get to the bottom. These Congress people who are holding these committee hearing after committee hearing, all they're really doing is getting their camera FaceTime and building up their resume so the next time they run for election, they can sit there and say, looky what we did for you. The truth of the matter is, they're not really interested in getting to the bottom of this either. And if they were, we'd know about it because they'd be issuing special counsel. They'd be issuing subpoenas for every person that was on the ground that is still alive. And they'd be issuing subpoenas to CIA, Department of State, and Pentagon, and finding out exactly who was at the Benghazi facilities, who was involved, what were they doing, and where did those missiles come from, where did they go, where are they now, and we would really get to the bottom of this. The simple truth is, until we get to that point, all of the rest of this is bluff and bluster. There's a website out there, Sergeant Report, that's been very supportive of AVN, and there are a couple of articles out there which I've linked off, and if we don't get to the point where, as they say on their site, and their site covers a ton of information. If you want to go to it, it's sgtreport.com, SG Sierra Golf Tango report.com. It's an excellent site. If we don't get to the point where we demand an end to the state surveillance, where we demand an end to the Benghazi dog and pony show, the kabuki theater of what Congress is doing, We are not going anywhere. We're done. We're finished. We can no longer sit on the sidelines and allow this to continue. The proof is there. We just need the right person to turn over the right rock to get to it. But Congress is unwilling to stand up and say, we are appointing a special counsel with investigative law enforcement subpoena power to enforce this, utilizing police power to compel these people to testify. And Hillary Clinton and our entire Department of State and all of their shenanigans be damned. People died in Benghazi, and with 400 armed missiles out there, you can these are surface to air, right? You can bet that many, many, many more are going to follow. We need to know where they are, whose hands they're in, and this is exactly the kind of thing, the next bombing that occurs that is a result of one of these missiles, you know what you're going to hear from this administration? That it was something completely different. This is where the propaganda is going to pour through the door, where they're sitting there telling us that that this was something other than one of these surface-to-air missiles. Guaranteed, this is where you're going to start to actually see the propaganda that they approved for use against American citizens in the 2013 NDAA. This is where you're going to see it start to come into play. That when these missiles are being used, we're never going to truly know the truth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a tragedy of itself. I got to tell you, we need to have a grasp and an understanding of where we're going with this in our nation, because if we don't put an end to this, if we don't get to the bottom of this Benghazi thing, 400 surface-to-air missiles is the equivalent of an army. In the hands of the right people, they can create international havoc, shooting down airplanes, taking out embassies, taking out soft targets. I mean, what could you do with a weapon like that targeted at a nuclear facility? I'm talking about just a simple power plant. You see, the implications of this are so great that if this was actually done at the hands of this administration, it is a crime against humanity. All right, we're going to wrap this particular segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about Dianne Feinstein and the issues of journalist qualifications and how she believes that you are not a journalist and therefore not entitled to First Amendment protection unless you're hired and paid by a major mainstream media organization. Please find us at americasvoicenow.org. Find our videos at youtube.com/americasvoicenow. And then also, please make sure that you visit our website at americasvoicenow.org. Please sign up with us for our email list. We have an email list that we've been developing a database so that we can send email out to folks on a routine basis and keep you up to date and informed as to what's going on. Our Facebook page is just chock full of new information every day. We load it up. I want you to make sure that you see that video I told you about where they're actually using subliminal messaging about you will not fight back and things like that. Make sure that you get to our Facebook page and see that. We'll be right back.